All right, guys, good afternoon. This is Christian from Tropic Trade Group, and welcome to the Monday market recap. This is a public video. I do a couple of videos over the weekend for members. We'll go through some of the details of those and a few of the highlights, the watch list that we put out. Definitely had some nice winners off of there, so we'll discuss a couple of the setups and a little bit of post trade as well information too on how those are looking in terms of those positions that I started today. So big move by out of the growth areas of the market. One of the things that stood out to me was just how well growth was performing towards value and a little bit of rotation. So, VUG, which is large cap growth, was up just about 1.9% today. That's a very big day, considering when you look at the value areas of the market, which actually were down on the day. And I think that's also reflective when we look at the overall performance of the indices. SPY had a really nice day today, up close to 1%. But the NASDAQ crushed it. The Qs were up over 2% for the day. IWM was kind of a non-factor for the small caps, really weren't involved in the day. Part of the day, they were actually down for the day. Bonds weren't really talked about too much today. They were down when we look at the TLT, so the long end of the curve, down about 70 basis points, and the VIX continue to move down. We'll get to some of those performers. I want to go over a couple of things that stood out to me in the indices. Well, we had this nice move, obviously, since the beginning of, not the beginning, but the middle of March. And we had a little bit of a pushback. Of course, the end of the month is always one of those culprits. Big sell and balance back on Thursday. Always a little bit of a mystery to me why some of these funds sell so hard at the end of the month, and then generally they buy them right back in the beginning of the month. Always, again, a little bit odd to me, but hey, I don't want to argue with the market. That's what they do. And, it's best to kind of have that information to be able to capitalize a little bit on it. So we had this nice move back, and really, this is one of the levels that we highlighted in the member videos this weekend, was that, hey, if we could kind of start the week inside the value area for the week, and possibly we could do something like this, as long as we held this 45.30, which you could see we did all through the overnight session. So really, that was the support level for me to say, okay, you've got a level to trade against and to be a little bit bullish against. And if it breaks 45.30, then it's going to be probably a little bit of a reduction of risk for me. So that's what I saw. And again, if you're unfamiliar with what the value areas are doing, this is, again, I'm on the 1 hour charts. This is the value area for the whole week. It's based on last week's price action, right? And it really gives us a good support and resistance level, right? So if we wanted to build off of that, that's what we would do, and certainly we did that today. Also, if you note how key the support level came off of last week, here was the top of value for last week, which was right around 4506. We actually touched that in the beginning of the day on Friday, but held it pretty decently. Sometimes we definitely do that when we start the period and we kind of move way above value. Sometimes you do get a check back. And here again was that volume that we saw at the end of Thursday, but we never really broke support. The other thing that I thought was notable last week was the VIX wasn't really moving, decently, even with the market selling off. On Friday morning, you did not see a big move up in the VIX. In fact, it was actually like flat and down for the day a little bit. I was traveling half the day on Friday, but it was one of the things that I thought was just odd, because as I was traveling, like I was in a car and I was like, oh, the market's down a little bit for the day, but I was like, so is the VIX. And that really gives a good signal to tell you that, hey, sometimes the volatility will give you a little bit of a hint that it's really just a short-term fluctuation, and there's not anything really that is really pressing in terms of risk when you see the VIX down and the market down as well. Remember, normally when the market goes down, there's volatility and the VIX goes up. So that's why it's a little bit of a bullish divergence. That certainly helped, helped a few weeks ago. We highlighted that for the whole week, the VIX was down and the market was down. I think that was 3 weeks ago. And we got a nice rally off of that. So, these little types of hints that we get in the market, if you're paying attention, and these are the type of things that we like to try to communicate, while it's going on, as well as we talked about it in the weekend video as well. So you did have this nice little, like handle here. This isn't really like a cup and handle type pattern, but I don't know, maybe it's a it's a derivative of that. Keep in mind, a lot of patterns that you see, right, that you see in textbooks, they don't come like perfectly, right? They don't show up perfectly in real life. So sometimes it's a little bit of a derivative of that. But I do like this push up and then a little bit of a back test in here. And, that's quite textbook. So the next level of resistance to watch. Now, I don't know if we go and we take out the highs, but 46.17, notice that we stopped right at the point of control for S&P, and 46.17 would be the S&P level. Qs, since they have the strength, they can move up to 371.20. Now, note, if we do push back higher, that's going to be the second test of the top of value. Right. And we're getting, we could break above it. We did get rejected there at 369.18 last week, top of value for the year. But sometimes the more that you test these things, there is a chance that you can actually break through them. So that'll be very interesting. So a couple other themes that stood out to me was just rotation, right? And some of these areas, right? One of the things that I talked about this weekend was that some of the commodities have really kind of pushed back decently, right? That's been a huge trade of 2022, is the commodity trade, right? Not only energy, but we've seen it in the metals and the mining. We've seen it in the agriculture names. We've seen it in uranium plays. We've seen it in coal plays, and some of these things are moving together. But when we looked at these charts over the weekend, they didn't look like they were all raging to the upside. In fact, some of them look like they might be breaking down to the downside. Now, oil had a nice day today. It was up almost 5% for the day, and it did hold the 50-day moving average. That's a good thing. However, it's still not, it's so nice to see it hold the 50-day moving average, but it's not above the short-term moving averages. And when you look across some of the commodity plays, like wheat comes to mind, which is what, ZW, whoops, I got the wrong, right? This was up 2%, but again, so it's nice that you've got the 50-day moving average support coming in here, but it's no longer raging to the upside, right? And if that's the case, that's another, just observation that led us to the fact that we may not see this group may be due for a break. And those are the stocks, like the CF, which was still up 2% for the day. But you could see they kind of look like, they stalled out last week. NTR was down a little bit. So that's fine. These things have come a long way very quick. So I don't think that the rally is completely done in these areas, but it may be that they're due for a little bit of a break. And what's nice about this market, the other thing that we haven't touched upon too, which was a point of our weekend video, was that the seasonality for April is very strong. So now, instead of just straight sell-off, today was more of the rotation. One of the areas that's, and again, it's not all rosy, right? There's certain things, we talked about in the weekend video, that the transports, the financials, the home builders, have all been kind of under pressure. The semis didn't paint such a rosy picture last week either, right? So again, this is not a perfect market by any means. It's a market that's going to keep you on your toes, and I think that's just the way that it might continue to be for this year. Especially when we've got the Fed that is probably going to raise interest rates 50 basis points when we get to May 4th. Of course, we'll get those Fed minutes that come out on Wednesday. I don't really know what we're going to learn that's anything new that we don't already know. We've heard from every Fed speaker, but it is what it is. People will be worried about what else is going to be released from that March meeting. But my comment on financials was, this does not look like a great place to be. But right now, they're not really breaking down, right? They're back below the 200-day moving average, and it looks very sideways to me. So at least, like, again, I'm not looking for really any longs in this space right now, but at least if it kind of holds in there and doesn't break down. All right, let's talk about a couple of the things that I really got interested in is biotech, right? So I'll spend a minute or two in biotech because I've talked about for a while that I'm a trend trader. I stay away from downtrends. However, every once in a while, I will look for things to kind of move off the lows. And what I like to see is when you look at the move that we've seen in biotech, which basically topped out, all the way in the beginning of the beginning of last year, like February of last year was the high for biotech. And since then, it's been a very slippery slope. Right, but if we look at this weekly chart, there was a virgin point of control that was taken out, right? Kind of similar to this, right? And we started to see a move back up. Now, I'm not saying that we see that type of a move, but from a tactical setup, right? Now that this is what we like to see after a big decline, and it's been over a year of a decline, is we want to see some basing action, right? And it does look like you've got your left shoulder. You've got you could see that we made a new low here, and this was an RSI divergence, right? As the price action made a new low, the RSI didn't, right? So that's a bullish divergence that we saw back on 314, and it's been kind of grinding higher since then. So it looks like a little bit, and again, going back to patterns aren't always perfect. To me, you have a left shoulder, you got a right, so you got a head, and you got a right shoulder. So this could be an inverted head and shoulders. And it spent some time, it spent a number of months going sideways. The other thing that's different about this too, is it's the first time the price action has really been above the 50-day moving average since all the way back here. So I don't know how long the price action is gonna take us, but I think we can get up to like 9900, and then we'll kind of see what happens there. And that's a nice little trade from where I put this trade on and where we talked about it in the weekend video. Right. So here's a virgin point of control up there at 100. Right. And what I like to see when we do have a pattern like this is a decent amount of individual stock participation within the sector. And if you look across names, you're starting to see that, right? And that was the point that I was making in the weekend member video. Just a couple names to kind of look at. For example, like an AL. Oh, that's not the right name. Let me bring up my. At least I don't think it is. ALKS. I do get these names confused. ALKS is one name, right? So that's breaking above that range. It's now in this gap at this point, and it's almost filled that gap at this point. Another one is CRISPR, CRSP. Wait for this to adjust. Sometimes Thinkorswim has been slow for me today. Let me see if I can get the 1 hour chart. Let's see, sometimes if you go back and forth between time frames, sometimes you can get it. Yeah, so same thing here, right? This thing has made a high at 160 all the way down to $50. And now here's the point is to be patient. I'm never trying to get the actual bottom, right? What I'm looking for is to get the meat of the action. So after waiting for it to bottom, then waiting for it to trend, and then playing the trend, right, until that goes on. So I think this can go up to 76, right? That's the first virgin point of control that's up there, right? And it's also same thing, right? It's the first time that this name has really been above the 50-day moving average since all the way back in here. Now that was short-lived. So again, you still have to trade disciplined, right? And as long as it's above 67.75, I like it. And I did start a position in this one, right? And then and one other name that I thought was interesting too in this space was CLDX. And I think this one actually may have given back some of the early gains, but you also have a nice move out of this little consolidation, right? And you have a level to trade against. Believe it or not, that's what trading is all about, right? Is having a level to go long versus in an area where you know where you're going to be wrong, right? It's not about those, making predictions, and it's just about a setup, and then honoring the setup, right? And then being disciplined if it doesn't work. That's what trading is. Okay. So that's where I thought it was kind of really interesting. And then, of course, if you look at the software space, that did pretty well today too. There's a number of setups there, right? And we saw a little bit of call buying in one name that I thought was interesting last week that gave us a little bit of a hint, and that was which I took this position, which was ESTC. Right, kind of another one of these cyber names, but do you see the same type of pattern? Right, it's gone down from 189, hit a low of $68, right? Downtrend, right? So I'm not catching the falling knife. I'm waiting for the price action to improve, right? Again, notice the same thing here. Bullish RSI divergence, right? The RSI did not make a new low, right? That's called a bullish divergence again. And notice it's the first time the price action has been above the 50-day moving average since this, right? So if you're patient, right? And if you've been patient this year, now some setups are starting to look pretty interesting, right? And of course, some other names too. Tesla, which was one of our watch list names. So I'll actually send out the weekend video. But what I liked in Tesla is this thin value area for the week, right? And and it kind of coincided with the news for deliveries, which I thought the deliveries were strong. Forget about these analyst estimates. They had record deliveries, I believe. So right now in this environment, that's a pretty good accomplishment considering the supply chain issues that are going on. So many of the other automotive companies are not going to have those types of results. So I viewed it as a positive, and the setup was with the very thin value area. Remember, when we have one of these very thin value areas and you break it, you can sometimes have a nice move after that. So Tesla up to 1147. So very, very impressive. And this name is in the TTG trend portfolio. I do see that we're going to be butting up against this trend line. So we'll see how it goes from there. Amazon had a big day today off of that VPOC takeout, which marked the high. Apple had a nice day today as well. Same type of pattern, really strong, up about 2.4%. That was one of our watch list names as well. Notice that I've got a little bit of everything in the weekend watch list, because again, it's tough to tell when you're going to get that rotation, right? So I had a combination of things like Tesla, the XBI ETF. I had a crypto name in there. I had a semi name in there. We've got Apple, and we've got Arista Networks, by the way, another good looking setup, right? Had some digestion, no major pullback, just digestion, and it looks like it wants to take off again. Pretty nice. The solar names, I had one on the list, I think. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I had it down here. Right. I could have, I actually started a position on Friday and I took it off. And it looks like I could have kept it on, but ENPH, SPWR, both acting very well. The SPWR first candle back above the 200-day moving average since, all the way back on 12/3. So nice strength out of the solar group. All right. So, and here's just a few other areas that did well, right? The Chinese internet names. Obviously, you're dealing with a lot of risk in that situation, but nice performance up. That was your best performing group. That's on my spreadsheet. We mentioned the solar. FANG did very well on the back, of course, of Twitter. And that's probably where we'll leave the video for the day. But if you look at this gap up, where do I see Twitter could be going to? Well, it looks like it kind of stalled a little bit at the 200-day moving average. Always important to have, in my opinion, on your chart, because just so many, traders are looking at that 200-day moving average. But I think we can go up to the next level up would be 54 if we can stay above 50. right? That would be the next virgin point of control. Again, virgin point of control, a high area of volume that has not been revisited. So that's actually all the way back from here, right? And the market does remember these things. All right, guys, just, a really nice day. I think we were on top of the rotation. My thoughts are on some of the commodity plays. They've really gone up a lot. They've went a very big distance in a short amount of time. So let them consolidate a little bit. I don't think that they're going to completely go away, but I think that they could be a need for some consolidation. But still, I still watch. I'll be watching the leaders of those groups because they usually come out of the consolidation. So, for instance, in Alcoa, I think will be something to watch. Right, you could probably draw a little bit of a trend line in here, right, and watch for that one to kind of break back above. And I wouldn't be surprised because I think Alcoa is one of these companies that just has been a leader all year long. All right, guys, thanks for watching the video. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.